everyone, and welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis, which is presented to you by LawSikho. So today, as we know, we had a very special edition of both the Hindu as well as the Indian Express. As yesterday, the budget for 2021 and 22 has been released by the Finance Minister. So that is why there were a lot of articles and they were all talking about the budget. So what we have done is that we have amalgamated all the articles and basically we have discussed and made an analysis to the entire budget of 2020-21, 21 to 2022. Please keep in mind that the budget is a very exhaustive document and only the points which are relevant for our exam and which we need to know, keeping in mind the requirements that can be asked in the exam. We have inculcated that information in this discussion today. It might get a bit lengthy, so please, bear with us. So, firstly, we will be discussing the sector-wise analysis of the budget, and then we'll be discussing the key highlights, overall key highlights of the budget. So if you're also preparing for judicial services examination, you can have a look at the Lord of the Courses, which is the judiciary test prep course coming from LawSikho. The link to this course is available in the description box below, and from the landing page, you can download free study material for your own preparation. Also, you can enroll yourself for courses like for CLAD, SEBI, All India Bar Exam, etc. The links to these all are there in the description box below. So this is the multiple choice question from yesterday's discussion. PLI scheme or the productivity linked incentive scheme has a central objective of, your options are, increasing manufacturing in India, providing employment to women, helping banks to deal with NPAs that are the non-performing assets, or all of the above. You can write down your answer in the comment section below. So this is the descriptive question of the day. Discuss the difference between economic survey and budget. Who tables the budget in the parliament? So basically, not many a times the requisites of the budget are asked. Only maybe it might be asked for a particular sector or just the trend may be asked in the budget. But many times it also becomes important for a prelims exam as well. But it is very important to understand the difference between economic survey and budget. We had discussed in yesterday's article as well, so you can go through that too. So with this, let's first understand that what is the budget. So it is a pious statement presented by the finance minister on the government's policy and ideological intentions. How government seeks to tackle the immediate political or electoral and economic challenges. So basically, budget is it is considered to be a very pure document because it has a lot of information which is very crucial for the entire functioning of the government and the country, which is presented by the finance minister on the government's policy and ideological intentions for the coming year. Now, as you can see that the budget is for 2021 to 22. Now, as we know that the financial year, which we see, is not from January to December. Likewise, we have the normal annual year. Rather, the financial year in India, it ends at 31st of March. So it means that every financial year starts from 1st of April and continues till the next year of 31st of March. So this budget will be functional from 1st of April 2021 till 30th of March 2022. So that is why it is the budget for the year 21 to 22. So what is the significance of the budget? There are three main reasons that show and signify the importance of the budget. It delivers the balance between the government and informs the public about the past and the proposed. So it actually shows the balance sheet of the government. Basically, by balance sheet in the terms of economy, we mean that balance sheet basically has two sides. It has on the first side it has assets and at the other side it has liabilities. So on the asset side, these are the things that add to the value of the economy, and the liabilities are which are payable from the side of the government or the kind of bank. So it actually shows that how much the government or the financial side of the government is gaining and how much is due by means of debt, by means of interest, etc. And it also informs the public about the past and the proposed. So it also shows that what was the past and what kind of GDP allocation was there given to the various sectors in the past, and what are the proposed allocations of GDP in the coming sectors. Then secondly, it shapes the macroeconomic environment of the country. So the decisions of raising resources and spending. So by macroeconomic environment, we mean by basically simply by macroeconomics, we mean those sides of the economic studies or those things that deal about the economy as a whole. So when we talk about the macroeconomic environment of the country, it means that the economic setup and financial health of the entire country, and taking up those steps which will actually have impact at the large in the large scenario. So that also is shaped, this macroeconomic environment of the country is also shaped through budget. And next, it provides reform signals. So then it is through the budget that we understand that what are the areas of key importance and what are the areas wherein this financial year the government would be paying more attention by allocating greater funds, and thus these are the areas which are more important currently in our country. So what is different in this year's budget? So for this year, the focus is on how the budget will help in increasing the aggregate demand other than on deficit and debt. So basically, when generally the budgets are released, so every year, as we know, on 1st of February, the budget is released by the finance minister. So in the general scenario, there are two key important sides or features or two key important aspirations that we look forward from a budget, that it will be taking care of the fiscal deficit and also it will try to control the debt. Now here, by fiscal deficit, we simply mean that it is the difference between the revenue which is generated towards the government, which is collected by the government, and the expenditure which is made by the government. For example, let's take an example that the government collects 100 rupees as total taxes. Now these may be direct taxes, indirect taxes, or through non-tax payments as well. So completely, the revenue generation of the government is, for example, rupees 100. Now, out of these rupees 100, the government spends, let's say, 80 rupees in various schemes, health sector, IT sector, education, and various other defense and everything. So, 100 minus 80, which is revenue generated minus the expenditure done, is equal to 20, is the fiscal deficit. So always an amount in the positive one is considered to be a good one, because it would signify that the government is earning more and it is getting more through revenue and it has to spend less. But many a times this fiscal deficit also goes in negative, which means, for example, if the government was earning rupees 100, but due to various subsidy, MSP, other schemes and Manrega and so many other things which were being run by the government, it had to spend, let's say, for example, 120 rupees. So 100 minus 120 would amount to minus 20 rupees, which ultimately from where the government will get. Now this is through the debts. So whenever many a times the government has to take care of various finances and various expenditures that it has to take place, it goes for taking up debts. Now these debts may be from various internal sources. These may also be from some private huge companies as well. And obviously we know about the international bodies like the World Bank that lend to the government. So these are the two main features that are inculcated in a general budget. But this time, even along with focusing on controlling the fiscal deficit and the debt, the government budget has also tried to focus on increasing the aggregate demand. Now here, by aggregate demand, we mean that, for example, there are 100 people living in a particular country. So let's say there are 100 people living in India. One person but makes a demand of one pair of shoes. Now let's say every person, that is all the 100 citizens or people of the country, make demand for one pair of shoe. So ultimately the aggregate demand, the total demand of the entire population would be a pair or 100 pairs of shoes. So that would be the total demand of an economy. So ultimately this demand is the one that in the long run decides that what is going to be the health and the level of production in a particular economy. Let's understand this with a further example. Let's say that the people in a particular economy are demanding for these shoes. So will it not incentivize and motivate various producers to produce more and more shoes, because they know that the people are demanding for shoes? So ultimately, when there is demand, people are ready to spend on that particular purchase, and thus the production side or the suppliers or the producers are willing to produce more to satisfy the demand. If in case, like in the condition of COVID-19, when people had already lost jobs, there was recession all around, the people did not have a lot of money. So definitely the people were not spending a lot. Thus, the aggregate demand had fallen down. And when the demand had fallen down, the producers did not want to produce anymore. So that is how the entire cyclical thing got interrupted, and the economic growth got halted. So this is why, if at all the aggregate demand is worked upon, ultimately investment and expenditure will be increased, and thus the production will be increased, ultimately increasing employment in the economy, and thus moving the entire wheel of economic growth. So here the budget in brief. So about the health, we have a Pradhan Mantri Atmanirbhar Swasth Bharat Yojana, which has been given an outlay of rupees 64,180 crore. So you do not really have to remember the exact amounts or the exact budget that has been allocated to them, but a general concept should be there in your mind. Then in the field of defense, 1.8% of GDP has been allocated to defense. For reforms, 20,000 crore recapitalization of the public sector banks is taking place. Setting up of asset reconstruction company, asset management company to purchase bad assets of bank. If you remember, only a few days back, we had discussed an entire Indian Express article about the bad banks. So basically, it talked about the specifically instituted banks, which will be taking all the non-performing assets of the banks, and they will be working them to at least make them work in the positive direction. So that one is also done through the ARCs, which is the asset reconstruction company. So now the government will be focusing on this as well, and increasing the foreign direct investment in insurance from 49% to 74%. Now here, let's understand the sector-wise analysis of the budget. So if we talk about the tax, so the income tax slabs remain unchanged, just as they were. Those aged 75 and above are exempted to file the returns. Tax incentive to International Financial Service Center will be there. Relief to small charitable trust, threshold limit for trust increased from 1 crore to 5 crore. Relief for affordable housing and rental housing will be there. Like period for additional tax deduction for interest of rupees 1.5 lakh extended by a year to March 31, 2022. New tax exemption for notified affordable rental housing projects. Now, one thing we need to understand here is that why exemption or a kind of moratorium or a time extension is being given for the collection of tax, because definitely the financial status of the people and individuals who had to pay these taxes is not very sound. So in such a scenario, it is very important that some time is given by them to to them from the side of government, so that they can recover with the coming the growing economy, and then they are in a better situation to pay off these taxes. So the deduction of tax on dividend income at a lower treaty rate for foreign portfolio investors. Notified infrastructure debt funds to be eligible to raise funds by using tax efficient zero coupon codes. So now one thing that you need to understand here is that you do not really need to remember all these things. Just the trend you have to understand. So here for tax, the income tax slabs have remained unchanged. That is the biggest thing that we need to understand in this point. Then if we talk about the overall economy, then in sector of economy, we have agriculture, electricity under the part of infrastructure. So agriculture, it has announced an agriculture infrastructure and development cess on petrol, diesel, apples and alcohol. Custom duty has been reduced on the above by 10%. Then for electricity, rupees 3.05 crore scheme to revive the discoms, which are the distribution companies. As we know that the distribution companies of electricity are already into huge debt. So we need to revive them, and that is why a scheme of rupees 3.05 crore has been introduced, and a framework to provide electricity consumers an option to choose from service providers. Then ensure 24 hours power for all. Proposes to introduce a national hydrogen energy mission in 2021-22, which will be considered to be a source of green power. Then in past 6 years, 139 gigawatt of power generation capacity have been added, and 2.8 crore households were provided electricity connections. So it was quoted by the finance minister. Then in the automobile sector, vehicle scrappage policy to take place to phase out the old and unfit vehicles to encourage fuel efficiency and reduce vehicular pollution. So as we know that a new policy is coming up for the vehicle scrappage policy, that for the fitness test after 20 years for personal vehicle and 15 years for the commercial vehicles. So for example, if your vehicle, the car that you are driving or anything, bike that you are riding, it is more than 20 years old, then a complete fitness test of your vehicle will be taken up. And if it is seen that the engine that you are using consumes more petrol, for example, or it consumes more diesel, and further it lets out more pollutants in the air, so it would be the people would be encouraged to put forward their vehicles in the scrappage policy. So basically, by scrappage policy, we mean that the old vehicles are scrapped down, they're completely crushed, and the things that can be reused. Now, it could be the plastic from there, it could be the rubber maybe, then also the steel, huge amounts of iron and steel can also be it replenished from that entire scrappage policy. Then the privatization of 7 major ports. If we talk about ports, then out of 12 major ports currently under the center, 7 will be privatized. Tax holiday for startups till March 2020. Paid up capital limit increased to 2 crore from 50 lakhs and turnover from 2 crore to 20 crore. Then if we talk further about agriculture, budget allocation for the Department of Agriculture, Cooperation and Farmers Welfare slashed to 8.5%, which means it has been reduced. Reduction of 13% budget for PM Kisan scheme, which is the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi, all right? So it is actually an amount of, money of 6,000 rupees, which is given by 2,000 and 2,000 rupees to the to a class of farmers, which are maybe landless laborers, and there is a particular class of farmers. Then budget cuts of 20 to 25% for PM Asha and price support scheme. Then in the field of fishing, 5 fishing harbors to be modernized, situated in Kochi, Chennai, Vizag, Paradeep, and Petua Ghat. Food subsidy increased sharply from 1.15 lakh crore in 2020-21 to 4.22 lakh crore in 2021 to 22. So here a greater subsidy will be there. So the government will have more money to give to the Food Corporation of India to ultimately procure the crop and other grains on the subsidized rates. Then for cotton and silk, 10% customs duty on import of cotton and 15% increase has taken actually of 5% on import of raw silk also. Now see, whatever these things that you are noticing, we're already promoting our indigenous farmers and agriculturalists and horticulture, people associated with farming and horticulture to to produce more of cotton and other things like silk and so here greater custom duties will actually promote the internal usage and internal production of these goods. Then if we talk about healthcare, increase of 137% in health and well-being to spend rupees 2,23,846 crore in 2021-22. So a complete, you can see in health sector, 137% increase, percent of increase will be taking place. So here you can see we have it for drinking water, National Research Foundation, for vaccination, Finance Commission grants, and for nutrition. Now, one thing that we need to understand here is that the greater amount of the money that has been allocated for the healthcare sector is either related with vaccination or with drinking water and other things. But nutrition comparatively has been given a very small amount as per it had been estimated. So here the problem of malnutrition will be ever increasing now, because as we know that even due to the pandemic, more of the children and women had been moving towards the verge of being undernourished and malnourished. And with such small budgets for nutrition in hand, definitely the problem will be rising over here. So this should be seen critically. Then the new scheme, Swasth Bharat Yojana, will be there to improve primary, secondary, and tertiary healthcare system, strengthen national institutions, create new institutions to cater to detection and cure new and emerging diseases. Then for the social sector, a portal will be there to collect data on gig workers. Then gig workers, that are the platform workers, which basically are not accounted into any kind of main employment, but they work. There's a lot of movement in this work, so that is why they're called as platform workers as well. And it is very important to collect the data regarding them. So new scheme for public buses, wherein 18,000 crore rupees have been given to this. And here also 51.65% increase has been there in the spending for SCs as well in the social sector. Now here, there are some cuts in the allocation also for Ministry of Earth and Science, Department of Science and Technology, Department of Science and Industrial Research, and Ministry for Women and Child Development. So these all ministries or departments have seen a reduction in the allocation of their budget. Now, these are the key highlights, so you can go through them. I'll read along with you a few of them. Like, for example, we know that the tax slabs have remained unchanged. The tax revenue may grow by 16.7%. Sensex skyrockets 2,315 points. Consumers not to be burdened by the farm cess. No wealth tax to be implemented, no COVID tax to be implemented, telecom revenue estimate cut deeply, increase in the allocation of the MSMEs, food subsidy budget set at rupees 2.43 lakh crore. 5 fishing harbors, as we just discussed, they will be modernized for seaweed cultivation. Then 137% increase in health and well-being spend. Water supply, Swachh Bharat 2.0 for urban areas. Increased spending on schemes for SCs and Central Varsity, that is university, to come up in Ladakh. You can go all through all of these areas. And these are the main highlights of the budget for 2021 and 22. With this, let's see that what is the do we have for news in flash today. 2021 to 22 budget is India's first digital budget, so it marks another level of enhancement over here. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented India's first paperless budget as she read out her speech from a tablet, the tab which we say. Unlike the contemporary paper, this marks the beginning of adaptation of digitization of the government as well. Then Lieutenant General Mohanty appointed as the Vice Chief of Army Staff. So he shall succeed as Lieutenant General S.K. Saini. So this was all for today. We hope it was a good session for you. If in case you have any particular doubts, you can put them up in our Telegram group or even in the comment section below. We'll definitely make an effort to take them up as soon as possible. Also, you can visit our official website for any other kind of information. In case you wish to download the PDF for today's slides, you can join our Telegram group, the link to which is again in the description box below. Thank you so much.